I'm Jonathan Gerwitz, partner with K. Harvey Brand Partners, and welcome to thePoint. Today we're visiting with Jeff Arndt, President and CEO of Via Metropolitan Transit. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Jeff, when we visited in 2018, you were rolling out your Vision 2040 plan, your long-range strategic plan. So I want to revisit that.
Oh, sure.
There were three elements to that plan. And so the first one was Better Bus.
Correct.
What is Better Bus, and then how have you delivered on that?
I always use the Better Bus is comprised of three elements, right?
Yep.
Can you name them?
Frequency.
Yes.
Frequency and frequency.
Good. I think we have that message across now, right?
Yes.
Yes. So actually in 2017, 2018 is when the city first began funding $10 million a year for increased frequency on our service. We applied that $10 million to 18 different bus routes throughout the city. Some of them went from 60 minutes to 30-minute frequency, and some of them went from 15 to 12 to 10. And we saw in every instance an increase of ridership. COVID hit, and unfortunately, we now are having to rebuild both with respect to operators and frequency. But we definitely are on the road in our Better Bus plan to continue building on that. And of course, one of the other legs, one of its primary features is frequency.
The second element of Vision 2040 was improved technology, better technology. What are those improvements?
So I'll focus on two of them,
okay.
Right? First, and probably the largest, most prominent, is what we call Via Link. Primarily, we have experimented with it in suburban settings, where we'd have maybe a single bus route operating once an hour. We took the bus route out, we reinvested those dollars into what I would call a small regional rideshare, Uber, Lyft type service, where folks call, there's an app, or you can call, you book a trip. It's very much like the rideshare experience.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that's not like the rideshare experience is the fare is always the same. We are never more than $1.30 for a trip. All of those systems tie into the main system, and we treat them as though they were a bus route. So you can transfer for free to and from a bus into a Via Link or vice versa. So that's the biggest application. The smaller application, but the really interesting application, is the Navilens program. If you're driving along and you see something that looks like a big QR code, except it's very colorful, it's not the black and white version, that is Navilens. It was originally designed for visually impaired folks. Mm-hmm. They have an app. You kind of point the phone in the general direction, so it's not like in a restaurant where you need to align it, right? And you'll get verbal commands on how to get to the stop. You'll get next bus stop, next bus arrival time, all that kind of information through Navilens. It's also useful for people who can see the bus stop but want to know what time their next bus is coming anyhow. So even folks who don't have visual impairment can benefit from that program, right?
So Via Link was an important step in establishing truly multimodal public transit in San Antonio. So now we have Via Link, and the third element of Vision 2040 was rapid transit, or what we now call Via Rapid.
Right.
How have we progressed on that front?
By definition, rapid transit is always high frequency.
Right.
And our design, we have two lines, the green line, north-south line, and we have an east-west silver line. But both of those are designed to operate every 10 minutes throughout most of the day and 15 minutes on weekends. So definitely the highest frequency service that we would have out there, right? So that's really an important element of it. The second important element, it has dedicated lanes, and what they do is they increase the reliability of that service, the travel time reliability, and our ability to maintain the schedule, which is important. The third element is we do off-board fare collection.
Right.
So collecting the fares introduces delay and slows down the system. Our system, you will pay the fare before you even get on the vehicle. So if you can imagine, the vehicle pulls up. Now you don't have to go through the front door because you don't have to go through the fare box.
And level boarding.
Level boarding. So the doors open, people just get on, close, off it goes. Very much resembles the operation of a light rail,
right,
or a subway system.
At much lower cost.
Well, yes, at a much, so people always say, when do you think we'll get light rail in San Antonio? And I said, well, if San Antonio is smart, I would say never, because what you're going to get with rapid transit, you're going to get the benefits that a light rail system would provide you at half the cost. So the question would be, why would you spend twice as much for something that's not as good?
Right.
And I think the answer is you wouldn't.
An important point in the development of Via Rapid transit in San Antonio was Proposition A in 2020, which gave, after 2026, an additional 8-cent sales tax increment to public transit in San
Yes.
Antonio. So talk about why that was important.
VIA is the least funded major transit system in the state of Texas. In order to get these federal funds, you have to have local money to match the federal money. And so we were in a position where we couldn't afford to do much more than what we were doing at the time. So we put together a plan and financing for that plan that was based upon the potential availability of that 1/8 cent sales tax. And that's what we ended up taking to the voter. It had the three pieces, the three legs: the better bus, the technology, application of technology, and advanced rapid transit. It had a plan that had the green line, the San Pedro line only, because that's what we could afford to build with that 1/8 cent and operate. Without that 1/8 cent,
Yep.
we would not have had the money to even run those services. And you can't get a federal grant if you can't prove you can run it after it's built.
And as we're sitting here in late December and we're
Yes.
discussing, you have some important news about
Yes.
how that is going to pay off for our community.
Yes, the Federal Transit Administration here in late December will be arriving, I think a little like Santa, with a big check, hopefully, in their hand, $268 million. And the only reason we can get $268 million for that green line was that we had a successful election in 2020.
You've announced your retirement in
Yes.
early January, bringing to a close a 4-decade career. Talk about your highlights of your career and of your time here in San Antonio.
San Antonio is an extraordinary community. It's just something I've never experienced before, the warmth of this community. So it's been a wonderful experience from that perspective. I like to kind of break up my time here into kind of two periods. The one was let's help people understand better what VIA is, what VIA does, and what our constraints are. And so the fact that many people in the transportation sector, if you ask them, what are the three things that lead to successful public transportation? They know the answer. They'll give you the answer. Even people that aren't in transportation. I've had them walk out saying, yes, frequency. It took a while to get that message across. And I want to really call out former Councilman Ray Saldana. Gave up his car for a month, rode our system and rode his bike pretty much everywhere. The last day of that month, I met him at a park and ride, and he said, the only thing I find is that if you're trying to get somewhere, your schedules are not very accommodating often. And if you just miss a transfer, you can have a really, really long wait.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I know that makes the service less attractive. Well, what can we do about that? I said, well, funding, that goes with frequency, doesn't it? And he became a champion. He was the champion that went to City Council and said, we can make this system work better if we can help VIA raise the frequency of their service by making a $10 million contribution to their budget each year. So I think that was kind of a tipping point, where I felt that there was much greater understanding of why we were doing it and why we weren't doing some things, and how we were being kind of constrained in our ability to provide the kind of service that I think San Antonio deserves. So we went through that period, we started seeing the growth, and then, of course, COVID hit and kind of shut that down. But in that period between starting that frequency and COVID is when we built the plan that said, hey, if we had this additional funding on a steady basis, this is what we could do. And so the next point then was, now we need to educate on that. Why is that important? What does that do? With the passing of that vote and with the guarantee, if you will, that by 2026 we'll start getting that money, we started delivering that plan day one. We didn't wait until 2026. We're not in 2026 right now. We had built a reserve based upon funds that we got through the COVID Relief Act, and rather than spend them on small diffused projects, we saved it against the ability to advance these big projects. And that's how we were able to fund. So the interesting thing is, we haven't received a penny from that election yet. And yet we will be constructing the Green Line. We will have implemented 5 or 6 VIA link zones, right? We will be delivering on the plan that we told the voters we would do before we even get the money.
Jeff, I want to thank you for bringing the vision and the leadership to create a truly multimodal, robust public transit system in San Antonio. It's something that we've needed, and Jeff, you played such a big role in making this happen, and the impact is going to be here for decades, literally decades to come. Jeff, thank you so much for your leadership, for your partnership, for being a friend, and thank you for joining us on The Point.